I didn't knock, didn't call, just pushed the door open with the keys I still had in my pocket. Her keys, my keys, still on the same ring. That detail would come back to haunt me later. I remember the air in the apartment felt off before I even crossed the threshold. Still too quiet. Not silence, but something heavier. The kind of quiet that waits for something to explode. The lights were on in the living room, but no voices. I took 2 steps in and dropped my bag on the floor. My coat slid halfway off my shoulder as I glanced around. Empty hallway, shoes missing from the rack, candles lit on the edge of the kitchen counter. I don't even like those candles. She always said I was too sensitive to smells when I blew them out. But tonight she'd lit them anyway. Vanilla something, thick in my throat. I rounded the corner. That's when I saw them. It wasn't just that she was with him. It was the way she looked at him. Like I never existed. Like the version of her who sat across from me every night at dinner. The one who once reached for my hand under tables at weddings. Never breathed the same air as this one. Sprawled across the couch in lingerie I didn't recognize. She didn't even flinch. Not even when I said her name. He stood up. I remember how slow he moved. Deliberate, like he had no urgency. Like I was some inconvenience, some background noise. He didn't speak. Didn't apologize. Just blinked at me like he'd been warned I might walk in and didn't really care. She adjusted her hair, looked right through me and said, "You said you'd be home late." That was the first thing out of her mouth. Not even a hint of guilt. No fake panic. No attempt to explain what I was looking at. The scent of that disgusting candle mixed with the sweat in the air made me want to put my fist through the drywall. But I didn't move. I stood there, holding the moment like a loaded gun. But she wasn't scared. She wasn't even embarrassed. She crossed one leg over the other and added, "We're kind of in the middle of something." That's when I understood. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't something that happened once. This was something rehearsed, repeated, owned. She hadn't been caught. I'd just been stupid enough to arrive uninvited to a part of her life she didn't bother hiding anymore. I wanted to say 100 things. Ask 1,000 questions. Why here? Why him? How long? But I knew none of it would matter. Her eyes told me she'd already moved on from any consequence. There was no shame left in her. She had burned that bridge months ago and watched the smoke while I was still walking toward her with flowers and apologies for things I didn't do. I turned and walked out. Not because I was weak. Not because I was afraid. But because in that moment, I understood that I was a ghost in my own life, and the only thing I could do to survive was vanish. So I did. I disappeared from everything. I cut off the power to the apartment. Froze the bank accounts. Canceled the shared cards. Took my name off the lease. Every trace of me vanished in 72 hours. She texted once. Just once. It said, "You're overreacting." I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have something to say, but because she wasn't going to get another word from me. She used hers too carelessly. Let her sit in that silence. Let her stew in the echo of the door closing for the last time. What she didn't know was that I wasn't running away. I was preparing for something much bigger. She didn't hear from me for almost 3 years. That was intentional. The week after I disappeared, I drove until the map stopped making sense. No plan, no destination. Just the desperate instinct to escape anything that smelled like her, sounded like her, reminded me of how stupid I had been. I deleted every shared photo, changed every password, threw my phone into a river after forwarding my number to a burner I never checked. The man she'd laid herself out for in my living room wasn't just a stranger. He was a symptom. The disease was her, and I had to amputate everything infected. I left a note with my lawyer. Nothing sentimental, just bullet points. Assets to be divided, storage keys, the name of a therapist I never intended to call. She signed the divorce papers digitally. No comment, no fight, just a check mark. Like she was unsubscribing from a mailing list. In those 3 years, I didn't waste time. I rebuilt. Not in a movie montage kind of way. There was no running up mountains, no self-help podcasts, no sobbing on the bathroom floor. There was just work, sweat, repetition. I took every ounce of pain and turned it into fuel. I started my own business, changed my name on social media, refused to answer any mutual friends. My body hardened. My face changed. People didn't recognize me anymore. I didn't want them to. And then, when I wasn't looking for it, I found someone. Not someone to fill the hole she left. No, that hole was a grave. I found someone real. Someone who didn't need to be impressed. Who didn't weaponize silence. Who didn't lie for sport or dress cruelty up as independence. She didn't ask about my past, not at first. She just let me exist. And for the first time in years, I felt seen not as a tool or a placeholder, but as a person. That kind of healing is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It creeps in slowly, in the way her fingers wrapped around mine without needing a reason. But the past doesn't stay buried forever. One evening, a message arrived in the inbox of my business account. No subject, just a name in the sender's field. It was hers. She shouldn't have been able to find me, but she did. And the message? It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even about the past. It was a single line. We need to talk. You owe me a conversation. She was bold enough to think she had a claim on anything after what she did. But more than that, it meant something else. She had lost control. Of the narrative. Of the story she spun when I left. She wasn't done with me. Not because she loved me, not because she missed me, but because she hated that I slipped through her fingers without giving her the last word. So I made a decision. I would go back. Not for closure. Not for kindness. But because people like her don't understand loss until it's served cold and undeniable. And I was ready to deliver it in person. I didn't reply to her message right away. I let it rot in the inbox for a full week. Unread. I wanted her to stew in that silence. To feel the same irrelevance she once shoved into my chest like a knife. She had called it a conversation. What she really wanted was control. Closure, maybe, but only if she was the one who slammed the door. But I wasn't the same man who had walked out 3 years ago with his heart torn in half. That man was dead. Buried. In his place stood someone she wouldn't recognize. When I finally answered, I didn't give her what she wanted. No greeting. No emotion. Just 5 words. Tell me where and when. She answered in minutes. A cafe downtown, midday, neutral ground. I knew the place, too clean, too curated, the kind of place that looked good in Instagram stories. She'd chosen it carefully, as if the location might soften the confrontation. As if white walls and artisan coffee could bury betrayal. I didn't tell anyone I was going. Not my business partner. Not the woman who'd stood by me while I stitched myself back together. This wasn't a conversation. It was a reckoning. When I walked into the cafe, she was already there. Sitting by the window, phone in hand, sipping something green and smug. She wore confidence like armor, tight, calculated, expensive. She looked up when I approached, and for the briefest moment, something flickered behind her eyes. Not guilt, not sadness. It was fear, but she covered it quickly. You look different, she said, smiling like we were old friends meeting after a vacation. Took me a second to recognize you. I sat down, didn't smile, didn't speak. She leaned back. So, you really did disappear. Vanished like a ghost. No note, no goodbye, no explanation. I stared at her. The audacity, the absolute gall to rewrite the story in her favor. She didn't miss me. She missed the control she lost when I walked away on my own terms. You didn't deserve a goodbye, I said. You earned a silence. She rolled her eyes. God, you're still so dramatic. And there it was. The old venom. Not even hidden. I didn't ask you here to fight, she continued. I think we owe it to each other to clear the air. Oh, I asked. You think I owe you something? She crossed her arms. Don't pretend you were some kind of saint. We were both checked out before anything happened. No, I said sharply. You checked out. I stayed. I waited. I asked questions. You gave me lies and locked doors. And then you put another man in my house like I was a ghost already. She blinked. That one hit. But she recovered fast. You weren't exactly thrilling to be around, you know? Always working. Always tired. You made it easy. And there it was. The truth. She didn't feel guilty. She never had. Because in her mind I deserved it. For not being interesting enough. For not dancing fast enough to her tempo. You didn't ask to meet me to apologize, I said. You came here to rewrite history. You want to believe you were justified. She didn't respond. I stood, dropped a 10 on the table. She grabbed my wrist. Wait, she said. Her voice cracked for the first time. Are you seeing someone? There it was. Not concern. Not regret. Curiosity. Possession. I found someone who sees me, I said. She doesn't lie. She doesn't cheat. And she doesn't talk like a villain in a soap opera. I walked out without looking back. This time I didn't need to, but I wasn't done. Not yet. She had asked for a conversation. What she was going to get was a consequence. She had no idea what she'd ignited the moment she grabbed my wrist and asked if I was seeing someone. Because here's the thing she never understood. I don't forget. I might vanish. I might rebuild. I might even forgive in some buried, abstract way. But I never, ever forget. Her question wasn't about me. It was about control. She wanted to know if someone else had taken what she so carelessly threw away. She needed to measure her own worth against the life I built without her. And the idea that I had found peace, that I had healed without her, was the one thing she couldn't stand. So I let that truth simmer. Quietly, strategically. Over the next few weeks, she kept trying to reopen the line. Emails, a few phone calls from blocked numbers, and eventually, a message to my company's Instagram, posing as a potential client. I didn't respond to any of them, but I watched. I read every word, because she was unraveling, and I needed to know exactly how far she'd fall when I pushed. Then one night, I got a message from a mutual friend, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Hey, she's been telling people you abandoned her, that you were cheating on her, that you left her with nothing. That was all I needed. It wasn't enough for her to ruin our past. She was now trying to poison the future I built. So I went back to the beginning, to the boxes I stored after I vanished. Digital backups, old screenshots, receipts, audio recordings, everything. Kept it all. Every lie, every smug text she sent, every message she forgot to delete when I borrowed her laptop. She was careless and I had documented it all. Not out of spite back then, but because I needed to make sense of it. Now it would become my weapon. I called the mutual friend back, asked for a coffee meet, told him the truth, showed him the evidence. He went pale. You're going to burn her to the ground with this, he said. No, I replied. I'm going to light a candle. The fire's hers to walk into. The next day, the story started changing. People began reaching out quietly. Apologies, regrets, whispers of what she'd said versus what they now knew. I never made a public scene. I never posted a rant. I simply handed the truth to the people who mattered and walked away. But I knew that wouldn't be enough. She would come for me again. And when she did, I would be ready. Because there was still one last piece of the puzzle. The man from the couch. The one she replaced me with. I had found him. And what I learned. Let's just say, she had told him a very different story, too. And he was no longer on her side. His name was Tyler. I found him through a linked gym account tagged in one of her old photos. Back before she deleted every trace of her past that didn't make her look like the victim. I clicked through the posts, checked check-ins, noticed a half-hearted attempt at influencer life. He wasn't subtle. Guys like him never are. Shirtless mirror selfies, motivational captions, protein affiliate codes, trying hard to look like a man, but every image screamed boy. But something about his face stuck with me. That blank, unbothered look he wore when he stood in my living room like it was a hotel suite. I had wondered what kind of man would sleep with someone else's wife and not flinch when caught. Now I had the chance to ask. It didn't take much. Just one message, plain and direct. I think we've met. 3 years ago. My place. She never told you who I was, did she? He replied 5 minutes later. You're her ex. I didn't answer. I just sent a photo. The living room. That night. I had taken a single picture before I walked out. Not of them, just the space. The shadows. The emptiness. I had no idea why I did it at the time, only that I needed proof it was real. That they were real. He messaged again. Man. She told me you were abusive. That you hit her. That you cheated and ran off with some intern. She said she left you for her safety. There it was. Not just betrayal. A carefully planted lie designed to absolve her. She hadn't just rewritten the ending. She'd redacted the truth entirely. I called him. No message this time. He picked up on the second ring. His voice was cautious, like he already knew something was off. She said you were crazy, he started. I let him talk. I let him paint the whole picture. How she had told him I was a monster. How she cried the first time she told him about me. claimed I threatened her. Said she was terrified I'd come back. How he believed her. Until 2 weeks ago when she started showing up at his place drunk. Ranting about me. Slurring half-confessions, asking if he thought I'd moved on. She started showing cracks. He saw them. And then he found the receipts. Literal ones. From hotels. From restaurants she told him she visited alone during their serious months. Other men's names. Other numbers. She was seeing other guys while we were together, he said quietly. Of course she was, I replied. You just happened to be the one I caught. He was silent for a moment, then muttered. I was defending her to everyone. Felt like a hero. You weren't a hero. You were her cover. He didn't argue. Then he said something I didn't expect. I want to help. That stopped me. Help how? She's toxic, man. She lies to everyone. If you're going to confront her again, I want to be there. I didn't answer right away, because a plan had been forming in my mind ever since she sent that first message, and now it had a new piece. Not for revenge. Not even for justice. But for exposure. She had built her life on the illusion of control, the performance of being untouchable. I was going to strip that illusion clean off her skin. And now I had an unlikely ally. I didn't trust Tyler. Not entirely. Maybe not at all. But trust wasn't necessary, usefulness was. And right now he was valuable. We met in person. Neutral spot. A quiet bar with enough shadows to speak without interruption. He looked different up close. Smaller somehow. Not physically, he was still built like a statue, but something in his posture had changed. The arrogance was cracked. He looked like someone who'd recently realized they weren't the main character in their own story. He came with a folder. Not a metaphorical one. A real one. Stuffed with screenshots, forwarded emails, a few printed texts. His face was grim as he slid it across the table. She told me you had breakdowns, he said, avoiding my eyes. She said you tried to track her after the divorce. That you stalked her. She needed a villain, I said, flipping through the evidence. You were just the idiot she recruited to make it convincing. There was more than I expected. She'd spun elaborate tales to different people. With Tyler, she was the abused woman bravely starting over. With her friends, I was the cold husband who left her for a younger woman. And with mutual acquaintances, she claimed she had tried to save me, that I spiraled, that I begged her to take me back. She didn't just lie. She rehearsed. I put the folder down. She's planning something, I said. That message she sent me wasn't desperation. It was a move, a test balloon. She wants to know how much power she still has. Tyler nodded. She messaged me the next day, too. Said she was thinking about giving us another try. Out of nowhere. Told me she still cared. So she's circling the past. Looking for leverage. He didn't respond, but his jaw tightened. I want her to see what she really looks like, I said. No more pretending. No more versions. Just the truth all at once. No exit door. How do we do that? She likes to perform, I said. Let's give her a stage. I knew her type. She thrived in environments she could manipulate, social ones, professional ones. Any situation where image mattered more than facts. And in the time since I left, she had built a small platform around herself. Networking events, panels, a few curated online posts about recovery, healing, moving forward. A mutual friend mentioned an upcoming seminar she'd be attending. Not hosting, just attending. But the guest list was high-profile enough that she'd want to be seen. Admired. Untouchable. That would be the place. I looked at Tyler. He was watching me like someone watching a fuse burn down to a stick of dynamite. You really going to do it? He asked. I nodded. I gave her 3 years of silence. Now she gets 5 minutes of truth. I didn't want revenge. I wanted the moment where her masks couldn't catch up to her lies. The kind of silence that follows not an explosion but exposure. And she was about to feel it in front of everyone she ever fooled. The venue was glossy and manicured, all glass walls and soft jazz, with servers who wore their name tags like they had stock in the company. The kind of place where handshakes meant job offers and the air always smelled like money and cologne. She'd be comfortable here. Too comfortable. She arrived 20 minutes late. Of course. Sweeping entrance, flowing black dress, practiced smile. The people near the door tilted toward her. magnetized by whatever story she'd sold them about who she was now. That's what she thrived on, context she could control. If she could shape the setting, she believed she could shape the truth. But the room tonight didn't belong to her. Tyler was already inside. He wore a crisp blazer, arms folded near the back wall, keeping distance, watching. He didn't look at me when she walked in. We'd agreed, no nods, no cues. This had to unfold like theater. And I was the audience. For now. I waited until she moved deeper into the crowd, basking in low laughter and flattery. Then I approached. She didn't see me until I was 3 steps away. When she turned, her expression cracked. Just for a second. Then the smile snapped back into place like a mask pulled tight. "You're bold," she said, lifting her champagne glass. "Following me around now? Don't flatter yourself," I said. "I was invited. Like you." "Oh." Her eyes flicked behind me, scanning for familiar faces, trying to figure out what she'd missed. "Well, congratulations. I guess you've finally moved up." There it was, mockery wrapped in elegance. She thought she had the high ground, that this was some coincidental reunion she could control. What she didn't realize was that the room had already turned against her. She just didn't know it yet. I leaned in slightly, my voice low. "You remember Tyler?" Her grip on the glass tightened. Not enough to spill, but enough for the chill to find her wrist. "What about him?" "He's here." Now she blinked. "And he's not here for you," I continued. "He's here for the truth." She laughed. Too loud. Too bright. A performance for the people near us. "I don't know what you think you're doing," she said, still smiling. "But dragging your pathetic little grudges into a professional space? Kind of desperate." "No," I said. "Desperate is rewriting history so many times you forget which version you're selling." Her mouth opened, but someone was walking toward us. Not Tyler, someone else. A woman. Clean suit, clipboard, earpiece. Event organizer. She stopped by my side. "Is this her?" she asked me quietly. I nodded. The woman turned to her. "Ma'am, can we have a quick word in private?" The smile on her face twitched. "Why?" "It's about the profile you submitted for the speakers list," the organizer said. "There seemed to be some inconsistencies." And just like that, her control began to slide. Because I'd sent them proof, receipts, messages, screenshots of credentials she never earned. She wasn't just a liar in relationships. She was a fabricator in every sense. Her entire professional reinvention was built on stolen quotes and fake anecdotes. Inspirational theft. The woman tried to speak, tried to bluff. But the clipboard in the organizer's hand had her own words printed in black and white. "You're making a mistake," she hissed. "You don't know who you're dealing with." "No," I said. "That's the problem. Everyone didn't know. Until now." She was escorted out. No shouting. No tantrum. Just that awful silence when someone realizes their mirror has finally cracked in public. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. Tyler passed by me on his way out. Didn't stop. Just gave the briefest glance, a shared understanding. Then he was gone. And for the first time in 3 years, I exhaled without pain. But this wasn't the end. There was still one more thing left undone. The fallout didn't take long. 2 days after the event, she disappeared from social media. Not just a break, full wipe. The curated healing journey, the faux empowerment posts, the partnerships, all gone. 1 minute she was preaching strength through adversity. The next, silence. No exit post. No final quote. Just deletion. But silence from her didn't mean silence about her. The organizer from the event sent me a short message the next morning. "Thank you. You spared us a scandal. She won't be part of any future panels." That was it. Quiet. Professional. Cold. I kept waiting for the message. The one I knew she'd send. The last desperate flick of a dying flame. And right on time, it came. 4 days later, 2:17 a.m. No subject, of course. Just text. Short and bitter. "You humiliated me. Are you proud?" I read it once. Deleted it. She wanted a reaction. She always wanted a reaction. Even in disgrace, she couldn't stand being unseen. That was her true addiction. Not men, not admiration, but attention. If she couldn't be worshipped, she'd settle for being hated. But I wasn't giving her either. Instead, I drove. Back to the place I hadn't seen since I left it behind. The apartment. Not the one we lived in. I had no interest in that graveyard. But the storage unit where I kept the few things I hadn't been ready to throw away. It was time to confront what I had left behind. Not her, but me. I unlocked the metal door. Dust swirled in the stale air. Inside, boxes, a few pieces of old furniture, and one framed photograph wrapped in cloth. I unwrapped it slowly. It wasn't of us. It was of me. A candid shot from years ago. I'd forgotten it existed. One of those rare, strange moments where someone else caught a glimpse of who you really are. Unguarded, unaware, unbroken. A time before her lies redefined me. I stared at that photo for a long time. Not to grieve, not to remember, but to recognize. Because in that image I wasn't a victim. I wasn't a ghost. I was a man with something worth protecting. And it reminded me why I left her, why I stayed gone, and why I finally came back. To reclaim that version of myself. I wrapped the photo back up, locked the unit, and as I stepped out into the morning light, I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to believe until now. It wasn't her story anymore. It was mine. The strange part about revenge, the kind that's cold, deliberate, precise, is that it doesn't feel like triumph. Feels like silence. Not peace, not pride. Just quiet. The kind that comes after a storm, where you almost miss the noise because at least then you knew where the damage was coming from. I'd won. If you can call it that. She was exposed, discarded, irrelevant. Her voice, once thunderous in every room she entered, was now just static. No more appearances, no more echo chambers, no more curated illusions. Her phone calls stopped. Tyler never heard from her again. The network of people she leaned on. They ghosted her the way she used to ghost me. When a person builds their worth on fiction, they're one truth away from extinction. But what lingered in the quiet wasn't satisfaction. It was clarity, because the final piece of her power over me wasn't in her lies. It was in the idea that I needed to destroy her to be free. And now that she was gone, I was staring at the emptiness she left behind, wondering if I had mistaken victory for healing. That's when I decided to see her one last time. Not to speak, not even to be seen, but to understand the cost. I learned where she worked. Some small PR firm that hadn't yet heard about her unraveling. She was downgraded now. No more panels. No more center stage. A dim office, 3rd floor, away from the windows. I stood across the street for exactly 10 minutes. She came out at 6:12 p.m., alone. No friends, no noise. No one walking her to her car. Her heels clicked fast, not confident, urgent. Like she was afraid someone might recognize her. She looked thinner. Not sick. Not broken. Just smaller. Like someone who had finally met herself and didn't like what she saw. She didn't notice me. I didn't want her to, because I wasn't there to haunt her. I was there to bury the last part of myself that ever wanted her back. And in that moment, I understood something I hadn't dared admit all this time. She didn't ruin me. She revealed me. Everything she stripped from me. Trust, patience, love. I got back on my own terms. Stronger, smarter, quieter. Not because I fought her, but because I finally stopped trying to make sense of someone built entirely from chaos. I turned and walked away, not with fire in my chest, not with vengeance in my veins, but with a calm so full, so final, it felt like armor. She didn't look back. Neither did I. I never told the woman I love now everything. Not because I was hiding it, but because she never needed to know to trust me. Real love doesn't demand the bloodied history. It reads the scars and kisses them anyway. And if she ever asks, truly asks, I'll tell her everything. Not as a warning, as a map. I keep a journal now. Not for drama, not to relive. Just to remember. Because forgetting isn't healing, it's avoidance. And I don't avoid anymore. I write the dates. I write the names. I write the things I once blamed myself for and cross them out one by one. Some days that's enough. Some days I still want to scream. But mostly I'm good. Because here's the truth, the real ending, if there is one. She thought she could write my story for me. Thought she could twist it, stain it, steal it. She didn't realize I was the one holding the pen. You don't get to erase people and expect them to vanish. You don't get to lie and expect silence forever. She thought she'd be the last word. She wasn't even the middle. When I walked in that night and saw her with him, something in me died. But something else was born. I vanished for years, built a new life, found real love, and when I returned, I made sure she got what she truly deserved. Not fire, not pain, truth. Because when you expose someone who thrives in the dark, the worst thing you can do isn't to hurt them. It's to show everyone else who they've been all along. I don't need revenge anymore. I don't need closure. I have something she never will. A life that isn't built on lies. And peace that doesn't disappear when the room goes quiet.